Right, welcome back. And we were speaking to His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi on the developments, the last of which was, or of what we mentioned was the Chinese president visiting for the first time Saudi Arabia and putting some of the points of strength. I guess His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi is back with us. Your Excellency.
Yes.
Right, so to continue on with our discussion, and another important summit took place in the United States that was not held since more than 2 decades, the last of which was 2004, the United States-Africa Summit. And I have to say here that Egypt was part of both the important summit that took place in Saudi Arabia and also the US-Africa summit that was held in the United States. And there was a kind of very extended and various meeting of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to some of the important high-ranking US officials, where President Sisi was speaking on behalf of Egypt, but also on behalf of Africa. How can we really describe this important summit?
It is very important, of course, and it's very important for us, for the Africans. They have another chance to meet each other, but on the American soil. But to be frank to you and to our audience, I have my reservation concerning the American relations with Africa. My humble experience during my days in Africa, and my source here is some American friends in the diplomacy. They say that we are withdrawing from Africa. It doesn't pay enough. One ambassador told me that what I gain in a country in Africa in 1 year, I can gain it in 1 day in Japan. So Africa is not easy. It's a big challenge for those who want to invest in Africa. But because we are African, because we are half of the Arab world is African, that's proof that we have real interest in our relation with Africa. But concerning the United States, I must say, wait and see, because they promise many promises, and my experience that not all the promises are implemented. So let us see what will be happen after this very important summit, of course. But I see that those who gain from this summit are the Africans themselves, as if they are meeting anywhere, whether in Egypt or any African capital. But for the United States, I have my worries and reservation with all due friendship with the Americans.
Remains to be seen, Your Excellency, here.
Exactly.
And the COP. And I have to speak about the COP because it was the huge ever event that took place in in Egypt, one that was very well prepared for. How do you view its importance, and if we can just brief?
This is a sort of, I call it conferences tourism. We have invited 169 presidents, and of course we hosted the head of states. But mind you that 50 or 60,000 of delegations were present there, and they paid their hotels. This is another source to finance our tourism, and I am so glad that Sharm el-Sheikh was fully booked by that time, and even some other cities on the Red Sea. So this is very important. Another gain from such an event that I always say, if I want to make a sort of propaganda for the Egyptian tourism in 169 countries, how much it costs? Here I have a propaganda without any cost, because of course the mass media in every single country are following their president, showing him at the Red
Yes.
Sea, at Sharm el-Sheikh, the activities. This is a sort of very important information about Egypt
Indeed.
and the success in
Indeed.
tourism and in preparing such very important events
Yes,
like that.
indeed, it was a matter of pride, Your Excellency, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi. Thank you so much for being with us, and a happy new year to you and all your beloved, Your Excellency.
Yeah, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much. And I guess this year has seen lots and lots of Arab development. We hope for next year to be a year of peace, serenity, and prosperity for the whole world, and particularly the Arab world. Now we'll leave you with this report that is a kind of wrap-up to the developments in the Arab world. Let's watch. See you next year, next Saturday. And a happy new year for the whole world and for us in the Middle East region.
It's the year when the life-changing COVID-19 pandemic faded. The fallout from the war in Ukraine has been felt throughout the region. Despite the Ukraine crisis, leaders of Egypt, Iraq and Jordan discussed intensifying consultations and coordination on political developments in the region amid current unprecedented regional challenges that pose a threat to the security of the Arab world and the Middle East. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry said the trilateral cooperation mechanism between Egypt, Jordan and Iraq is model for joint Arab action. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, Jordan's King Abdullah II and Iraq's Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani held a summit at the Dead Sea in Jordan on the sidelines of the Second Baghdad Conference for Cooperation and Partnership. The summit discussed means of enhancing cooperation between the three countries in various fields within the context of the historical and brotherly relations that bind them. Furthermore, the leaders highlighted the need for expediting the implementation of their joint projects and for removing obstacles facing them. The leaders discussed means of boosting cooperation and coordination between the three countries as part of the cooperation mechanism. They also highlighted the necessity to support the Palestinian National Authority. El-Sisi delivered a speech at the Baghdad conference during which he hailed the mechanism of cooperation with Jordan and Iraq as an example of frameworks for joint Arab action and integration. The leaders of the three countries have held 5 summits since 2019 to discuss implementing strategic projects. In addition, the three leaders held a summit along with UAE and Bahrain in Egypt's new Alameen city last August, and another with the United Arab Emirates in the Jordanian port city of Aqaba in March to enhance inter-Arab partnerships. In another development in 2022, a new era in Arab-Chinese relations, the visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping to Riyadh likely had more to do with energy diplomacy than a competition with strategic implications for the US and the region. Saudi Arabia has hosted 2 important summits with China on the 9th of December in Riyadh during the second official visit of Chinese President Xi Jinping to the country from 7th to 9th December. The first was a Gulf Chinese summit, and the second was a summit between the Chinese president and Arab leaders, including President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. The first visit of President Xi to Riyadh came on a tour of the Middle East, during which he visited Egypt, Saudi Arabia and Iran in January 2016. Things have changed since then in China and in the Gulf and Arab countries. The world as a whole has also changed since the pre-COVID era and from what it was like before the war in Ukraine broke out in February this year. The Saudis hosted a summit last July that brought together US President Joe Biden and the Gulf leaders in addition to the leaders of Egypt, Jordan and Iraq. But this summit, through there were genuine attempts to portray it as proof the relations between Washington and Riyadh were on the mend, demonstrated widening gulf between the US and Saudi positions concerning regional and international developments. The visit of President Xi Jinping to Saudi Arabia and his summit meetings with the Arab and Gulf leaders gained added significance from a strategic point of view against this backdrop, to the extent that some saw the meetings as a major recalibration of Saudi relations with both the US and China, and to the benefit of the latter. All in all, the visit of President Xi and his summit meetings with the Saudi Gulf and Arab leaders have proven that China is looking to gain in deepening its presence and expanding its role in the Middle East and Gulf region. On the Arab side, the Gulf and Arab leaders have expressed their political will to promote comprehensive cooperation with China. In November, Egypt successes to host its COP27 summit. The United Nations Climate Summit COP27 approved the creation of a special fund to cover the losses suffered by vulnerable nations hit by the impact of global warming. Delegates uploaded from the Loss and Damage Fund was approved by consensus following 2 weeks of contentious negotiations over demands by developing nations for rich polluters to compensate them for the destruction from weather extremes. Also in November, the 2022 World Cup got underway in Qatar, marking a landmark moment as football's biggest tournament took place in the Middle East for the first time. Morocco became first Arab and African team to reach semi-finals.